The Associate Education Minister says she's not sure who's responsible for raising teachers' pay expectations to unrealistic levels, but it certainly isn't this government. A mega strike is planned for May 29th, with 50,000 teachers expected to walk off the job over ongoing pay disputes for both primary and secondary teachers. Now, as you heard there, the government says it's making some big changes to NCEA. So I asked the Associate Minister of Education, Tracey Martin, whether NCEA currently lacks credibility.
No, but I think after a number of years of having NCEA there, that what the review has said is that there are ways that we can make it simpler, we can streamline it, and we can give better supports to the way students learn. So if we talk about the numeracy and literacy credits, often I think the general population sort of thinks that numeracy and literacy is English and math, whereas actually it's about the functional skills that everybody needs for everyday life, like reading news stories and editorials and reading charts and being able to divide and multiply. So those 20 credits that have been wrapped up inside NCEA Level 1, Level 2 and Level 3 are going to be sort of siloed off and developed independently, and students from Year 7 are going to be able to start to achieve those particular numeracy and literacy credits.
So, how is it possible to get through NCEA without those fundamental skills then? How has that been possible?
Because it has actually been, they have been wrapped up in the other subject areas. One of the positives about actually separating them out and making them 20 credits on their own and giving students the opportunity from Year 7 to do that is we can be a lot clearer, I suppose, that they are actually able to do the numerate and literate tasks that we believe they need for everyday life.
So I'm just wondering, the independent grading, the external grading, have teachers been overestimating their students' abilities, or what? Well,
I think it's more likely that actually because they've been wound up with other topics, and so numeracy and literacy were part of that wider level of qualification, that we haven't had the focus that we could have had on it. One of the reasons for making sure that we have external assessment of the numeracy and literacy credits is actually to take weight off teachers. Now, let's be clear. I think we need to remember that we're dealing in a digital age. We're talking about the opportunity for students to be able to prove that they have these skills through multiple ways. So it's not sitting an exam and then posting it off. But we didn't want to put, or my understanding is the task force didn't want to put more pressure on teachers with another assessment here.
Well, speaking of pressure on teachers, you've got a mega strike on the way. Is there a crisis in education?
Well, we acknowledged that there was one, and that was around teacher numbers and so on before we came in.
But is there still one? Is there still one now?
What we've got, well, how would I put this? We certainly haven't, in the 18 months that we've been here, we certainly haven't been able to train the number of teachers that we need to be able to start having really solid conversations about class size and other areas that the teaching profession wants us to. Because many of the things they're asking us for, you need more teachers to do that. Hence why $95 million was announced the other day to train more teachers, because we have to get to that space. We have offered what we believe is a very good offer for the times that we are in, e.g. the other demands on the government, which is on average for the majority of teaching staff another $10,000 within a 24-month period. There are areas I'm working on, learning support delivery plan, the learning support coordinators, to take some of the weight that our teaching staff are under inside their classrooms because the students don't have the support they need. So we're working on multiple areas while at the same time having these negotiations.
And I do understand that, but the teachers believe there is still a crisis in education, and I suppose this is a really important benchmark to establish. It's a bit like the housing situation, so I'm asking you whether you think there is still a crisis in education, because the teachers do.
At the moment, the majority of what I'm hearing from the teachers is that they believe that there's a crisis around their pay and around retention.
Do you agree with them?
I think, I don't know that I would categorise it as a crisis, but I would certainly agree that our teaching staff over a number of years have become weighed down by the system and what is being asked of them. Hence why we are trying to not only change and give them more salary, but we're also trying to change many of the systems around them to minimise some of that stress and some of that workload.
So, Minister, do you think their expectations are realistic, the teachers' expectations, because they would like more money that's being offered and better conditions? Are those expectations realistic?
We are working on the better conditions as fast as we can. Hence, learning support, trying to get more teachers into the workplace, those sort of things. We are working on those as much as we can, minimising excessive administrative obligations and things like that. But with regard to the money, there is just no way that this government has 3.2, I think, combined. Is it 3.2 combined that the unions are asking us for, 3.2 billion? We just don't have that.
So they're realistic. Well, I suppose it flows on that you think their expectations are unrealistic then. Would that be fair?
I think right at this moment in time, my personal view is that their expectations around the money that we can put in their pockets is unrealistic.
So how come those expectations have been raised? Who is responsible for raising their expectations?
I actually don't know, because I remember being on the campaign trail with Chris Hipkins, and I remember him being asked by audiences, will you dedicate yourself to a certain pay increase or whatever for teachers? And I remember him specifically saying it would be a very foolish Member of Parliament who did contract negotiations on the campaign trail. So I'm sorry, I don't know who the unions are talking about or who people are talking about when they say that Labor raised their expectations. I did not see Minister Hipkins do that during the campaign trail. Is
there money that's being spent elsewhere that you think should go into teachers' pay? If you say there's a limited amount of money, are you sure that, you wouldn't be better off redirecting some of your spend into teachers' pay?
Well, we're trying to redirect $1.2 billion,
and they say it's not enough, which is the issue, isn't it? You're kind of at loggerheads.
We are, which is why we really need to get into facilitation, because, Minister Hipkins came to Cabinet in the first instance and asked for a particular envelope. That envelope was rejected right at the beginning. He came back.
What was the envelope he first asked for?
It was around 600 million, and then there was 700 million was the increase that was on the table. And Cabinet said we cannot, with all the other demands that we have, we cannot go higher. But we do want to stay at the table talking. And we're happy to go into facilitation again. There are lots of things we can do that, like the learning support coordinators, that is one of the areas that teachers told us will take pressure off them.
Yeah, but despite all the things,
will be on the ground.
Despite all the things that you've got, that you have given or put in place in education, like bumping up the recruitment package, like that learning support, all of those things, teachers already know about them. Doesn't change the fact that they think they deserve more money and better conditions. Is there one thing that you think that you can stump up with that's going to change the impasse here?
Well, unless we get to the table with regard to facilitation, then I personally don't know what it is.
Well, that leaves you between a rock and a hard place, doesn't it?
Well, I think what it does is it says that the negotiators, and please remember that ministers aren't allowed inside the negotiating room, so the two negotiating teams have to come back to the table. We won't find what that is until we keep sitting down and talking through.
And that's Associate Minister of Education Tracey Martin there.